Hey Reddit. This is going to be long. I need to put it out there before I explode. My name's Rachel Carter, 29F, and I'm an ICU nurse living in Albany, New York. This is the story of how my family tried to rob my grandmother of her dignity, her rights, and her home. It's also the story of how I refused to let them, the woman at the center of it all. My grandmother's name is Martha Simmons. She's 84, and I swear she could outthink and outsnark anyone I know. She's lived alone since my grandfather died 20 years ago, and she's fiercely independent. Doesn't like help, doesn't like fuss, and sure as hell doesn't like people messing in her affairs. She raised 3 kids, put herself through school in the 60s, and still balances her checkbook by hand. She owns a large 2-story house on a hill in Cooperstown, New York. It's surrounded by maple trees, has this wide wraparound porch, and still smells faintly of wood polish and cinnamon from the potpourri she insists on making herself. The house has been in the family for 50 years. Paid off. Well maintained. A real estate agent once told me it could go for $1. For million easy. That house, as it turns out, was the bait. When the visit started feeling off, it began subtly. My Uncle Bruce, Martha's middle child, who lives out in Buffalo and never gave a damn about Grandma before, suddenly started checking in. First it was phone calls, then weekly visits. He brought his wife Janice, who always acted like she was allergic to country living, and their son Aaron, a 25-year-old who's been between jobs for as long as I've known him. At first Grandma was flattered. "Your uncle's finally paying attention," she said. I wanted to believe it too. But the comments started creeping in. "The stairs seem steep, don't they, Ma? Are you sure you're taking your meds right? This house is too much for one woman. You know Aaron's studying finance. He could help with your investments." The tone wasn't concern. It was positioning. Then I visited one weekend and found Janice going through Grandma's filing cabinet in the den. She claimed she was helping sort bills. But there were bank statements, tax returns, and even Martha's original property deed spread across the desk. I confronted her right there. "Does Grandma want your help?" I asked. She smiled oily. "We're just trying to keep things from slipping through the cracks." The first paper cut. 3 weeks later, Grandma got served. It was a Friday. I was just starting my night shift when she called me in a panic. "They're saying I'm mentally unfit, Rachel." I dropped everything. Switched shifts. Drove down that night. She showed me the packet. Petition for guardianship. Filed by Bruce. They claimed she was suffering from cognitive decline, unable to manage finances, and prone to delusions and poor judgment. Attached were exhibits. A blurry photo of her kitchen counter with some unwashed dishes. A stack of unopened junk mail. A pharmacy receipt from when she forgot to refill her thyroid meds on time. It was laughable. And terrifying. They wanted full legal control over her estate. Her medical decisions. Her finances. Her house. Everything. And worst of all, the court was taking it seriously. The ugly family meeting. I called a family meeting. Thought maybe there was some misunderstanding. Thought maybe Bruce had been misled by bad advice. He showed up with Janice and Aaron, like they were walking into a boardroom. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just asked them why. Bruce barely looked at me. "Mom's not well, Rachel. She forgets things. Leaves the stove on. She needs supervision. Guardianship is just a formality. We'll make sure she's comfortable." Janice chimed in with her signature passive-aggressive smile. "We're thinking of getting her into Shady Pines' private room garden view. It's better for everyone." I asked Grandma to speak for herself. She stood up, leaning hard on her cane, and said, "I may not be young, but I am not gone. You're not taking me anywhere." They didn't even flinch. They were so sure the court would believe them over her. Lawyer up, Grandma. I spent the next 2 days researching elder law attorneys. Found a sharp, no bullshit woman named Stephanie Cho, XDA, specialized in contested guardianship cases. Stephanie met with Martha, interviewed her, ran her through cognitive tests right there in the living room. Afterward, she said, "If she's incompetent, I'm a giraffe in a power suit." She got to work immediately. Filed a response. Requested a full psychological evaluation from an independent neuropsychologist. We got copies of Grandma's clean physicals, cognitive screenings from her GP, and statements from her mailman, pharmacist, and church friends confirming she was active, alert, and very much capable. Bruce's team responded with more evidence. A video of her mixing up days on the calendar, and an old voicemail where she asked someone to remind her of an appointment. That's it. The battle line was drawn. Stephanie warned me. They're not stupid. They're banking on the system being too slow and impersonal to care. It's your job to make them care. We started gathering affidavits. I even installed security cameras in her home with Grandma's permission to prove she was living independently. Stephanie lined up 2 specialists to testify. One was a geriatric psychiatrist with 30 years' experience. Meanwhile, Bruce doubled down, started showing up uninvited, tried to inspect the house. Janice even called the sheriff once, claiming Grandma had locked herself in and wasn't responding. The deputy arrived to find her calmly reading Little Women on the porch with a glass of iced tea. That was just the beginning. They weren't giving up. And neither were we. I took time off work. Started sleeping over at Grandma's. I watched the family I grew up with morph into strangers with legal teeth. And this is just the beginning. Next up is the preliminary hearing. And Stephanie says it's going to be ugly. Bruce is pulling in an expert witness, some private doctor he paid for, to try and discredit Grandma's evaluations. They think they've already won. They're about to find out just how wrong they are. Hey Reddit, Rachel Carter here again. Last time I told you how my Uncle Bruce and his soulless entourage tried to have my 84-year-old grandmother Martha Simmons declared legally incompetent to get their grubby hands on her $1 million home. Well, buckle up, because the first court hearing turned into a full-blown circus. And the stench of betrayal only got worse. Lawyered up and ready to swing. Our attorney Stephanie Cho is a cold-blooded strategist, exactly what we needed. The moment the court date was set, she had us rehearsing every possible angle. She explained the stakes. This isn't just about guardianship. If the judge believes their case has merit, they can immediately request conservatorship, freeze her accounts, and assign an evaluator of their choosing. So we came prepared. We had 2 neuropsychological evaluations confirming full mental competence, a notarized statement from Martha's primary doctor, surveillance timestamps showing Grandma doing everything from cooking to playing online bridge, a video journal I helped Grandma make where she discussed her schedule, news articles, even tax changes, all unscripted. Stephanie also subpoenaed all communications between Bruce and the other petitioners. What we found there made my blood boil. Operation Maplewood. One email stood out. Bruce had titled it, Operation Maplewood, Projected Asset Transfer Strategy. Maplewood is the street Grandma lives on. The email laid out a timeline. Q1. File for emergency guardianship. Q2. List the house for preemptive market valuation. Q3. Move Martha to supportive care. Projected cost offset via Medicaid application. Q4. Redistribute residual assets among managing parties. They even budgeted moving Aaron into the house to hold value until sale. It read less like concern for an aging mother and more like a corporate takeover. Stephanie slid the printout into a binder titled, Intent to Defraud, Exhibit A. Court Day 1. Welcome to hell. The hearing was held in the Otsego County Courthouse. Gray walls, flickering lights, and a judge who looked like he hadn't smiled since 1996. Bruce arrived in a gray suit. He clearly borrowed from someone with longer arms. Janice looked like she was auditioning for Real Housewives. Legal Edition and Aaron? Still no job. But somehow, now wearing prescription glasses for professional effect. Stephanie leaned in and whispered, They dressed for performance. Let them perform. The truth plays better. The courtroom act begins. Bruce's attorney Victor Lang had all the smarmy charm of a used car salesman. He opened with, We are here out of love. This is not about assets or control but safety. Miss Simmons, bless her heart, is declining. He painted Grandma as lonely, confused, incapable. Then came their so-called evidence. Photos of Grandma's fridge with expired yogurt. A recording of her asking what day it was. A wellness check log from Janice listing episodes of paranoia. Grandma once told her she didn't trust anyone who wore perfume to Thanksgiving, which fair. But then Victor brought out the bomb. We have a medical witness. Dr. Nathaniel Griggs. Enter stage left. An old, disheveled man in a lab coat who looked like he'd last practiced medicine when pagers were cutting edge. Stephanie's eyes narrowed. Griggs took the stand and claimed to have interviewed the respondent. Except Grandma immediately leaned over to me and whispered, I've never seen that man in my life. Perjury and popcorn. Stephanie requested to cross-examine immediately. Dr. Griggs, when and where did this alleged evaluation take place? He stuttered. Fumbled a date. Stephanie showed receipts proving Grandma had been at her hair appointment during that exact time. So unless you diagnosed her while she was getting a blowout at Wanda's salon on Main Street, I suggest you revise your statement. Boom. 1 point for our side. Judge looked annoyed. Not convinced yet, but definitely raising an eyebrow. Then Grandma took the stand. It was her call. She told Stephanie she wanted to speak. She walked up slowly. No cane. No nerves. And then delivered the calmest, most savage testimony I've ever witnessed. She answered every question with clarity, wit, and a little sass. She quoted her bank balance to the cent, recalled the name of her childhood dog, and the title of the article I'd sent her about Medicare fraud the week before. Then she turned to the judge and said, if they'd asked me for help, I'd have given them some. But they'd rather steal from me behind my back. That tells you everything about who they are. Even the court stenographer paused for a second. The crack begins to show. Bruce's lawyer scrambled. They tried to throw out the psychological evaluations, claiming bias. Stephanie shut that down fast by pointing out both doctors were court-approved. Then came Stephanie's ace. She introduced the Maplewood email chain. The courtroom hummed. The judge asked Bruce directly, Mr. Simmons, did you or did you not write this plan? He tried to deflect. Then blamed Janice. Janice blamed Aaron. Aaron just said, I thought it was like theoretical. It was beautiful. Sloppy. Transparent. Preliminary ruling victory for now. After 4 hours, the judge adjourned and gave a preliminary ruling. The court finds insufficient evidence to support immediate guardianship or any temporary conservatorship. The respondent remains autonomous pending full hearing. We won that round. Grandma went home with her rights intact. But Bruce didn't take it well. He didn't even look at us. He just whispered something to Janice and stormed out. Then the harassment began. That same night, Grandma's mailbox was ripped out of the ground. 3 days later, her landline rang nonstop with hang-up calls. Then I got a letter at work. No return address. Just typed words. You should have stayed out of this. Blood always reclaims what it's owed. Charming. Stephanie filed for a restraining order. But we both knew it wasn't over. Bruce had lost the opening battle. But the war? Just getting started. And next he'd start playing dirty. Hey Reddit, Rachel Carter back again. Last time I told you how my family dragged my 84-year-old grandmother Martha through a humiliating court case, trying to get her declared legally incompetent so they could steal her house. We won the first hearing, but I knew the battle wasn't over. And I was right. Because once we started digging deeper, we discovered this wasn't the first time Bruce and Janice had pulled a stunt like this. It was just the first time someone fought back. The smear campaign begins. After the judge denied temporary guardianship, Bruce didn't retreat, he doubled down. Grandma started getting strange calls. People from her church started asking if she was okay. Apparently, Janice had told the pastor that Martha had developed paranoid delusions and might lash out. Aaron made a Facebook post, vague but obvious. Some people just won't let go when it's time. Sad watching dignity rot away in public. My blood boiled. They were trying to isolate her, humiliate her, turn her community against her so it would look like she was unraveling. I spent hours calling people, explaining what was really going on. We got statements from her doctor, pharmacist, even her neighbor Dean, a retired cop who offered to install cameras for us. But I knew this was all distraction. Smoke. The real fire was burning somewhere else. So I went digging. Enter the wild card. Aunt Patty. Now let me introduce you to someone unexpected. Patty Whitaker. Grandma's cousin. 72, lives in Syracuse, owns a bed and breakfast, and hasn't spoken to most of the family in over a decade. I barely knew her growing up. She was the weird one. Traveled a lot. Got in a nasty fight with Bruce in the late 2000s over some family land upstate. I found her number buried in an old address book in Grandma's sewing room. Called her on a whim. She answered, suspicious at first. What's this about? I told her. I didn't sugarcoat it. Just said, Bruce is trying to declare Grandma incompetent to steal the house. There was a long pause. Then Patty laughed, short, dry, bitter. Of course he is. Just like he did to Aunt Louise. I sat up straight. What? Pattern of abuse. Patty told me everything. Back in 2011, Bruce and Janice had pulled the exact same move on our great-aunt Louise, Martha's older sister. Louise had early arthritis but was fully coherent. She had a cottage on Lake Canandaigua and a sizable inheritance from her late husband. Bruce filed for emergency conservatorship, citing mental confusion and erratic spending, got temporary access to her accounts, and within 6 months, the house was sold and the money reallocated. They moved her into a senior facility 3 towns over and told the staff she was combative. We weren't allowed to visit. Patty tried to challenge it back then but didn't have the money for a lawyer. Bruce steamrolled her. By the time Louise passed in 2015, the only asset left in her name was a burial plot. I sat there stunned. I had no idea. Grandma didn't either. They told her Louise moved closer to Janice's family and stopped writing letters because of dementia. They erased her. Evidence they forgot to bury. Patty had copies of old letters from Louise. Letters where she talked about being lonely, cut off, and confused why no one visits anymore. She also had an old legal memo from a paralegal friend, noting irregularities in the financial accounting Bruce submitted in Louise's case. And best of all, a scan check from 2012, written from Louise's account, signed over to Aaron for contracting services. Aaron was 13 in 2012. We had a trail. A prior pattern of financial abuse complete with receipts. Stephanie's strategy evolves. Stephanie was elated. She had a game face like stone, but when I emailed her Patty's documents, she responded within 10 minutes. We're flipping the table. This just went from defense to offense. She filed an official motion to introduce historical conduct under Rule 404B, showing intent, modus operandi, and prior bad acts. It wouldn't win the case on its own, but it was powerful context. She also quietly contacted Louise's former assisted living facility. Guess what? The administrator had just retired and remembered the case vividly. He agreed to provide a sworn affidavit that Bruce controlled all visitation permissions and that staff had no contact allowed orders on file for other family members. That's not normal. It was a deliberate isolation maneuver. The power of exposure. Meanwhile, I posted about the case anonymously on a local Facebook group under the title, Protecting Our Elders, a family member's cautionary tale. I didn't name names, but I included just enough detail. Within hours, I got 2 private messages. One from a woman named Nicole, whose grandmother had lived across from Louise. She confirmed Bruce and Janice moved her in the middle of the night and told everyone she had dementia, but she still recognized me just fine. The second message was from a guy named Tyler, who used to work in the law office Bruce used for the Louise case. He asked us to fast-track power of attorney stuff. Real pushy. Not illegal but weird. Everyone said he was that guy with the old lady money. Then they went after me. Bruce must have sensed we were building a counterattack. Because out of nowhere, a CPS investigator showed up at my apartment. Why? An anonymous tip said I was neglecting my responsibilities and potentially endangering a dependent adult. They were trying to suggest I was abusing Grandma. Fortunately, I had everything documented. Grandma didn't live with me, but even if she did, she was legally autonomous. I showed the investigator her court evaluation, letters from doctors, and even let her speak to Martha via video call. The report was closed in 48 hours. But it was a message. Back off, or we'll burn you too. Only now. I was done playing careful. Lines are being redrawn. Stephanie filed a cross-complaint. Abuse of process, defamation, and malicious prosecution. She also sent a formal complaint to the New York State Office of Children and Family Services, requesting a review of Bruce's actions against Louise Simmons, and now against Martha. And Grandma? She called a locksmith, changed every lock in the house, installed cameras, bought a home defense kit like she was preparing for war. They want to treat me like I'm already dead? Let's see how they like it when the dead fight back. Next stop, the big hearing. In 3 weeks, the full hearing is scheduled. Bruce has lawyered up again. Rumor has it he's hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on me, Stephanie, and even Patty. Let him dig. We've got truth, paper, and witnesses. And if they want a legal war, we'll bring a goddamn blitz. Hey Reddit, Rachel Carter again. You followed me through this twisted saga, from the moment my Uncle Bruce tried to have my grandmother declared mentally incompetent, all the way to us discovering he had already done this before to another relative. Well, now we were ready for the next move. Only problem? So were they. Because this wasn't just about a legal fight anymore. It was about the house. The symbol. The trophy. And Bruce wanted it bad enough to bury anyone standing in his way. This property is in transition. 2 weeks before the full hearing, I came by Grandma's house early Sunday morning. I was bringing her groceries and a flash drive with some court documents. As I pulled into the driveway, I stopped cold. There was a giant red and white sign planted in the front yard. It read, "Sale pending. Contact Hawthorne Realty for details." Underneath, "This property is in legal transition. Viewing by appointment only." I swear my jaw hit the steering wheel. Grandma's house was listed for sale? I sprinted inside. She was in the kitchen, calmly stirring oatmeal. "Grandma, do you know there's a for sale sign in your front yard?" She blinked. What?" I pulled her outside. Her face darkened like thunder. "I didn't authorize that. I've never even heard of Hawthorne Realty." I took a photo and immediately called Stephanie. She was furious. The paper trail of deceit. Stephanie called a listing agent directly. A man named Don Halperin, who sounded like someone's tired uncle. He told her the listing had been filed under an entity called Maplewood Family Trust, with Bruce listed as the managing trustee. Except, Grandma had never signed any trust documents. Ever. Stephanie demanded a copy of the deed. We got it 36 hours later. And what we saw made me physically nauseous. It was a quitclaim deed dated just 5 weeks prior, transferring the property from Martha Simmons to Maplewood Family Trust. The signature? A shaky scrawl that looked nothing like Grandma's. It was forged. Forgery with notarization. Even worse, the deed was notarized. Name Cameron Pierce. Mobile notary. Based in Utica. Stephanie pulled his file. The signature log had no fingerprint, no witness, and the confirmation ID Grandma supposedly gave was wrong by 2 digits. And she never met this man. We had a forged deed, a fraudulent listing, and a property illegally marketed under someone else's authority. Stephanie wasted no time. She filed a lease pendens, notice of pending litigation, a motion for an emergency injunction, and reported the forgery to the county clerk and district attorney's office. Then we called Cameron. The notary's nervous breakdown. At first he denied everything. I remember her. Sweet lady. Signed in front of me. It was all legit. But Stephanie, savage calm, asked one question. Did she show ID with the name Martha or with the name Margaret Simmons? Silence. Because the signature you notarized says Margaret, and her legal name is Martha L. Simmons. Then she emailed him a copy of the DMV signature card and Grandma's passport. He broke. Turns out Bruce had arranged the whole thing. He brought in an impersonator, an elderly woman from his church dressed like Grandma, coached to sign a fake trust agreement and quitclaim the property to keep it safe from probate. Cameron confessed. In writing. We sent it to the DA that same day. Meanwhile, the family got uglier. Word got out. Janice's sister, who works as a dental hygienist in town, apparently told a client that Grandma was slipping hard, and we were just pretending she's fine. Aaron made another Facebook post. Some people will burn a family tree to save a dying branch. They wanted to poison public perception, make it look like we were unstable, emotional, vindictive. But we had cold, traceable evidence. And one more surprise. Grandma's will, and the clause that killed their plan. What they didn't know was that Martha had updated her will 3 years ago. And while the original version from the 90s had all 3 of her kids, including Bruce, listed as beneficiaries, the new version cut Bruce out completely. He wasn't even left a spoon. There was also a special clause. Any individual who knowingly attempts to manipulate, contest, or interfere with this estate may be disinherited and excluded from all related trusts and properties. Stephanie entered it into court as a protective provision. Bruce's face when he saw the exhibit? Redder than a sunburned tomato. The final move before court. Then, the last blow before the hearing. Stephanie arranged for an independent real estate appraiser to evaluate the damage caused by the fraudulent listing. The appraiser documented falsum loss exposure, neighborhood devaluation due to the for sale rumor, emotional distress to homeowner, statement signed by Martha's therapist. And to top it off, the appraiser's report included this line. The property was listed under false pretenses, and the unauthorized attempt to transfer ownership constitutes real estate fraud, potentially violating New York General Business Law Section 349. We attached it to our official complaint, and Stephanie filed for a civil suit against Bruce, in tandem with a guardianship response. Grandma's quiet fury. I came into the den that night, expecting to find Grandma asleep. Instead, she was sitting at her old roll-top desk going through photo albums. Her eyes were glassy, but she didn't look sad. Just resolved. She didn't even look up when she said, "They took my sister. They tried to take my mind. And now they want my house. They'll get none of it, Rachel. None of it." I sat beside her in silence. There was nothing else to say. The hearing is set. Tomorrow is the full court hearing. Witnesses. Testimony. Exhibits. Possibly the press. Bruce is about to be exposed not just as a greedy manipulator, but as a criminal. If he thought we were just going to roll over and let him steal Grandma's legacy, he picked the wrong woman. And he definitely picked the wrong granddaughter. Hey Reddit. Rachel Carter again. And this is the update you've been waiting for. The full court hearing happened. Everything, the forged deed, the fake trust, the CPS stunt, the whisper campaign, the history with Aunt Louise. It all came to a head inside a stuffy courtroom that reeked of cheap HVAC and stale tension. What was supposed to be a quiet guardianship hearing turned into a legal bloodbath. And by the end of it, Bruce didn't just lose control of Grandma's estate. He damn near lost everything else too. The setup. The hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. at the Otsego County Family Courthouse. We arrived at 8:10. Grandma wore navy blue, sharp, confident, the same suit she wore to Grandpa's funeral. Stephanie looked like she'd walked straight out of a courtroom drama, charcoal blazer, no-nonsense ponytail, and a rolling briefcase full of evidence with color-coded tabs. Across the aisle, Bruce, Janice, and Aaron. Bruce looked sweaty. Janice was avoiding eye contact. Aaron was chewing his thumbnail like it owed him money. Their new lawyer, Craig Dempsey, had the smug look of a man who thinks confidence substitutes for facts. The judge, Honorable Barbara Melvin, older, with a jaw that looked carved from stone and a tone like gravel. This wasn't her first rodeo, and it wouldn't take long to see whose side the rodeo clown was on. Opening arguments. Craig started with a melodramatic opening about loving families forced to make hard choices. He painted Grandma as sadly confused, claimed we were interfering with care, and warned the court of emotional manipulation by a granddaughter with personal motives. Stephanie stood and calmly rebutted, "We are not here to save Miss Simmons. We are here to protect her from predators. Predators who share her blood." The judge nodded slowly. The air shifted. The testimony parade begins. One Bruce on the stand. Dempsey tried to lead him through a narrative. When did you first notice cognitive decline? Did she become aggressive? Did she ever forget your name? Bruce gave these rehearsed answers like he was reading from a teleprompter. But then Stephanie cross-examined him. Her first question, "Mr. Simmons, when exactly did you inform your mother she had transferred her house into a trust?" Bruce blinked. "Well, she was there during the signing. I assumed." "Assumed? Do you have video proof? An audio recording? A written statement from her?" "No, but do you know the name of the notary?" Cameron Pierce. The man who later admitted under oath that your mother never appeared in front of him, correct?" Bruce squirmed. Stephanie didn't stop. She brought out the fake deed, the fake trust documents, the email where he called it Operation Maplewood. The judge interrupted. "Mr. Simmons, did you create a trust without the knowledge of the grantor?" Bruce muttered. "It was for her protection." Melvin just stared at him. "We'll come back to that." 2. Grandma testifies. She took the stand and lit the room on fire. She was firm, sharp, controlled. She detailed how she managed her bills, her medications, even her garden schedule. When asked about the accusations of paranoia, she smiled and said, "I didn't want to give them access to my accounts. If that's paranoia, then I suppose banks are too." Stephanie asked her how she discovered the house was listed. "My granddaughter told me. Then I stepped outside and saw a sale pending sign planted in my lawn like I was already dead." Silence. "I am not confused. I am not weak. I am not for sale." 3. The notary confesses. Cameron Pierce appeared via video link. Under oath, he testified that Bruce brought in a woman impersonating Martha, had her sign trust documents, and claimed it was just a formality. He stated, "In hindsight, I was stupid and careless. I've surrendered my notary license. I'm sorry, Miss Simmons." Grandma nodded, gracious even in betrayal. Judge Melvin jotted a note. Her face? 4. The flip Aaron cracks. Then came the twist. Stephanie called Aaron. Craig Dempsey objected. Not relevant. But the judge allowed it. Aaron looked terrified. He walked up like he was headed for execution. Stephanie asked him. Did your father ever tell you what the Maplewood Family Trust was for? Aaron hesitated. Yes, it was supposed to help manage Grandma's assets. Did he ever mention selling the house? He said we might need to help pay for long-term care. Was that before or after he said you could move into it? You could hear a pin drop. Aaron sighed. Then. He said if we moved fast, I could live there a few years before they sold it. Boom. Stephanie didn't press. She looked at the judge. Aaron sat down pale. Janice refused to testify. She claimed emotional stress. The judge didn't even ask her twice. The verdict, Part 1. After a short recess, Judge Melvin returned with her ruling on the guardianship petition. There is no credible evidence that Ms. Simmons is in cognitive decline. The guardianship petition is hereby denied with prejudice. The court sees it not as a protective action, but as a calculated attempt to assume control over an estate without consent. Boom. Crushed. But then came the second blow. The court also recommends immediate referral to the district attorney's office for investigation into potential charges, including fraud, forgery, elder abuse, and conspiracy to commit real estate theft. Bruce's face gray. Janice looked like she wanted to teleport out of her own skin. Aaron. Eyes down. No fight left. The press gets wind. Somehow, a local reporter from the Daily Otsego got word of the case. That afternoon they published. Family attempted to seize Cooperstown Elders' property using forged deed fake trust. Stephanie refused to comment, but the article cited public court filings. Bruce's name? Front and center. Former HVAC contractor involved in fraudulent attempt to seize mother's estate. Aftermath so far. The DA has opened an official investigation. Grandma's house is now protected under a restraining order. Stephanie is pushing forward with our civil countersuit for damages. I filed harassment complaints against all three of them. And Patty, bless her, is coming down from Syracuse to testify in the civil trial about what happened to Aunt Louise. And Grandma? That night I found her sitting on the porch sipping tea, wrapped in her old red quilt. They tried to break me, she said. But they forgot. I'm not made of glass. I'm made of iron and cornmeal and spite. I hugged her tight. They're going to regret underestimating you. She smirked. They already do. Hey Reddit. It's Rachel Carter again. And I'll be honest, this one is hard to write. The last few weeks have been a storm of subpoenas, court notices, media calls, and sleepless nights. You already know we crushed the guardianship hearing. That the court denied Bruce's petition with prejudice, referred him to the DA, and ruled that my grandmother Martha was perfectly competent. But what came next was the slow, merciless fallout. The kind that chews through everything. Family, finances, and even faith in people. Because Bruce lit this fire. And now it's burning down everything he touched. The day makes their move. Less than 2 weeks after Judge Melvin's ruling, we got word that the Otsego County District Attorney's Office was pursuing criminal charges. The charges were brutal and completely deserved. Forgery in the second degree, Class D felony. Offering a false instrument for filing. Attempted grand larceny in the second degree. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Elder financial abuse under New York Penal Code Section 190.65. Bruce was officially served at 6:15 a.m. on a Tuesday. Stephanie called me as soon as it hit the clerk's docket. It's happening. You might want to sit Grandma down. I told her after lunch. She was quiet for a full minute, then nodded and said, Good. Now let's see how he handles being the vulnerable one. Janice flips. Here's the thing about criminal charges. They have a funny way of making conspirators turn on each other. 3 days after Bruce's arraignment, Janice's lawyer reached out to the DA and requested a cooperation deal. She claimed she had emails, voicemails, and bank statements showing Bruce orchestrated the entire thing. That she had concerns, but went along with it under pressure from a controlling spouse. She painted herself as a reluctant accomplice. Let's be real, she wasn't. She's just a rat trying to find higher ground. But her emails were gold. Threads where Bruce talked about timing the guardianship before tax season. A draft transition letter he planned to send to Grandma's bank. A to-do list titled Steps to Legal Control that included get her doc to fudge the eval. Stephanie got access to the entire folder. And Janice? Well, she'll probably get reduced charges. Bruce? Not so lucky. Aaron vanishes. After the courtroom confession, Aaron disappeared from public view, deleted his social media. Left his apartment in Binghamton. Then Grandma got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. I didn't know it would go that far. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve it. I don't know who I am anymore. No signature, but it didn't need one. Grandma didn't cry. She didn't get angry. She just folded the letter once and tucked it into her Bible. I raised him better than that, she said. The betrayal I didn't see coming. And just when I thought I knew where all the knives were coming from, one came from behind. Remember Grandma's longtime neighbor? Dean Russo, the retired cop who helped us install cameras? He'd always been friendly. Came by to mow her lawn sometimes. Dropped off tomatoes from his garden. Gave her leftover pies from his daughter's bakery. Turns out Bruce had paid him $2,000 in cash to leave his gate unlocked, allow Bruce to inspect the back property line. And get this, provide a signed affidavit about witnessing signs of dementia. He'd written a statement, said Martha, once left a garden hose running overnight, and seemed confused when I offered to fix her screen door. Dean never submitted it, apparently. But the fact that he even wrote it? I was speechless. Grandma was still cold. She didn't say a word. Just crossed his name off the Christmas card list she keeps in her recipe drawer. Some people sell their souls cheap. Stephanie's civil suit takes shape. While the criminal case moved forward, Stephanie turned to the civil lawsuit. We were suing Bruce and Janice for emotional distress, defamation, fraudulent conveyance, abuse of process, real property interference, legal expenses and punitive damages. The total? $1. $2 million. It matched the appraised value of Grandma's home and accounted for every cent they tried to steal. The court approved discovery. Depositions are coming. And guess who was just served a subpoena? Cameron Pierce, the notary. The cracks in me. I've tried to be strong through all of this. I've smiled when Grandma needed it, stayed sharp in court, stayed calm through interviews and filings and late-night strategy calls. But I cracked last week. I came home from work, opened my mailbox, and found a shattered bottle of wine inside. Red liquid and broken glass everywhere. Taped to the neck. Hope your conscience drinks this. I stood in my apartment lobby and just stared. My hand started shaking. My chest felt like it was closing in. For the first time since this started, I sat down on the floor and cried. Not just for me. For Grandma. For what Bruce almost did. For how easy it would have been to let it happen. But then, a letter from Louise. Grandma found a box she hadn't touched in years. It was in the attic marked wedding china. But inside was a stack of old letters. One caught her eye. It was from Aunt Louise, dated 2012, during her time at that facility Bruce moved her into. It read, I don't know what's real anymore, but I remember you. I remember your eyes. I hope someone fights back for you like I wish I had. Keep the house. Don't let them have it. It's more than bricks. It's the only place left with our name on it. Grandma read it aloud. Her voice cracked, and something in both of us snapped back into place. We're not fighting over a house. We're fighting over a legacy. What's next? Bruce's arraignment hearing is set for 2 weeks from now. The DA is preparing a full case. The civil trial will likely begin in early fall. Stephanie's building a timeline of documented elder abuse, starting with Louise and stretching forward. And Grandma has decided to revise her will again, this time adding a scholarship fund, in Aunt Louise's name, for local girls studying law. If they wanted to silence me, I'll give them a damn choir. Hey Reddit, Rachel Carter again. We're near the end now. I can feel it in my bones. The way people look away when they used to stare. The way Bruce flinches when someone says the word record. Because he knows. He knows we've got him. And now the truth isn't just whispered in affidavits or printed in court filings. It's on tape. Yeah, we have the recording. The deposition gauntlet begins. The civil suit, $1. $2 million in damages, moved into deposition phase last week. We're suing Bruce and Janice for everything. Fraud, emotional distress, abuse of process, and property interference. The judge scheduled back-to-back deposition days, and I sat in on every one of them. Day 1, Janice showed up in beige like she was going to confession. Her lawyer kept interjecting with, she's not comfortable answering that, or we can revisit that under subpoena. Stephanie? She was merciless. How long were you aware the deed had been forged? Did you ever question why your son was promised occupancy of a home that wasn't yours? Were you present during any discussions about impersonating Martha Simmons? At one point, Janice said, I wasn't involved in the decisions. I just supported my husband. Stephanie leaned in, smiled like a shark. You supported a crime. Day 2 Bruce. He tried to swagger in like it was all beneath him. Didn't last long. Stephanie opened with the forged trust documents, then dropped the email with the Operation Maplewood timeline. Then she hit him with the lie from the hearing, where he claimed Grandma was confused about her meds. What was the name of the medication you claimed she missed? What's it prescribed for? Did you confirm that with her doctor? Bruce had nothing. Just blinks and bluster. But Stephanie saved the best for last. She opened a file folder, pulled out a small USB drive and calmly said, "We'd like to enter this audio into the record." The recording. Quick backstory. Grandma's landline has had voicemail forever. One of those dusty little machines with the red blinking light. She never deletes messages. Just lets them cycle endlessly. 2 weeks ago, I was organizing files for her when I knocked the machine off the shelf. It popped open and ejected the microcassette. I didn't think much of it. But then I listened. And there it was. A voicemail. Left by Bruce. Dated the week before he filed the guardianship petition. He thought she wouldn't hear it. She never had. She'd stopped checking messages years ago. His voice. Clear. Calm. Practiced. Mom, this isn't personal. We just need to start shifting control now. It'll look cleaner if it's a legal transfer. We'll get someone to walk it through with you. No lawyers. No drama. It's just easier if you don't fight it. Aaron needs a place. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Stephanie played it during deposition. Bruce's face turned white. He said it was taken out of context. That he was just suggesting help. Stephanie's response? You called a secret legal maneuver just easier if you don't fight. You threatened her peace and her property. That's not care. That's conquest. The fallout. Once the recording was in, Bruce's lawyer requested a recess. After a whispered argument that lasted almost 10 minutes, Bruce walked out. Not stormed. Not strutted. Walked. Like he knew it was over. The surprise witness. Cheryl Lang. Next day we got something none of us expected. A call from a woman named Cheryl Lang, age 63. She'd seen the article in the Daily Otsego and called the law office directly. She used to be Bruce's office manager. Back in 2014 when he was running a small HVAC contracting business. Her message? I know this might not help legally, but I saw him do this before. Not this exact thing, but I watched him talk an elderly client out of a repair refund, made her sign a blank document. Said she wouldn't know the difference anyway. I quit the next day. She didn't just tell us this. She signed a sworn statement. It may not be admissible in court, but it speaks volumes. Especially if the DA pushes for a pattern of behavior case. The quiet before the next war. Grandma's been quieter lately. Not sad. Not shaken. Just tired. I think watching your own child, someone you raised, fed, diapered, fall so far into cruelty drains something deep. She still wakes up early, bakes her cornbread, watches the weather, writes in her journal. But the light in her isn't what it was. I keep thinking of your mother, she said one night while we played cards. She walked away without a word. And now Bruce tries to take what I built. Maybe it's something I did. I put my hand over hers. No, this is who they chose to be. And who you are is the reason they couldn't win. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Me? I'm ready to finish this. We have. Bruce's voice admitting intent. Janice's emails confirming planning. Cameron the notary flipping under pressure. Community watching. A judge who knows the whole picture. And Grandma still standing. Depositions are wrapping. The civil trial is likely a few weeks away. But I know now that the criminal case is the hammer. The DA's office has officially convened a grand jury. Bruce could face prison time. And if he does, that recording will be the match that burns the rest of his schemes to ash. Hey Reddit, Rachel Carter one last time. This is the end of the story. Not the end of the damage or the memory or the consequences. But the end of the fight. The fire Bruce lit is now ashes. And all that's left is what survived the burn. The criminal case. Guilt by every measure. The grand jury handed down an indictment in late June. Bruce Simmons was officially charged with 2 counts of forgery in the second degree, 1 count of conspiracy to commit real estate fraud, 1 count of attempted grand larceny, 1 count of offering a false instrument for filing, and a misdemeanor charge of elder abuse. He pled not guilty at arraignment. His lawyer tried to stall the trial by filing motions to dismiss and suppress the audio recording. All of them were denied. The jury trial lasted 4 days. Stephanie and I weren't directly involved, but we sat in the gallery behind the DA's table. Bruce didn't testify. His defense lawyer tried to paint it all as a tragic misunderstanding. That he had misguided intentions, not criminal ones. That he only wanted what was best for his mother. But the recording crushed them. So did Janice's cooperation. So did the forged deed, and the fraudulent trust, and the notary's confession, and the voicemail, and the emails. The jury came back in less than 3 hours. Guilty. On all counts. The judge ordered immediate sentencing. Bruce was given 3 years state prison, 7 years probation after release, permanent ban on managing another person's estate or holding power of attorney in New York State. He didn't look at us when they took him away, but he looked at the cameras in the hallway. Still proud. Still arrogant. Still delusional. The civil suit. Every dollar accounted for. 3 weeks after Bruce's conviction, our civil trial began. It was quieter. No press. No cameras. Just filings, exhibits, and testimonies under oath. This time Janice settled. She admitted liability and agreed to pay $175,000 in damages. She also agreed to testify that Bruce had pressured her into participation and waived her right to appeal. Her statement read like it was written by a PR firm, but honestly none of us cared. She was out of the picture. Aaron never appeared. He was never named as a primary party. We didn't push. The court ruled in our favor. $950,000 awarded in total damages, including attorney fees and punitive penalties. A portion will go into a legal defense fund Grandma's setting up to help other elders in similar situations. And the rest? It's hers. The house is legally secured under a personal revocable trust with Stephanie as co-executor. No one's touching it again. The house, the garden, and the silence. It's late summer now. The hydrangeas outside Grandma's porch have overgrown their beds. Just how she likes them. The sale pending sign that once stood on the lawn? It's in the barn now. Nailed to the wall with the words "Try again," painted over it in white brushstroke. She still wakes at dawn, feeds the blue jays, listens to the radio, writes in her journal. The scars are there. You can hear them in the quiet between conversations. In the way she checks the mailbox twice. In how she triple locks the front door. But she's healing. Because she won. What I lost and what I gained. People think winning feels like fireworks. But the truth? It's quieter. Heavier. I lost a family I never really had. Lost the illusion that blood means bond. Lost a sense of safety that won't come back for a long time. But I gained truth. I gained strength. I gained peace. And I gained a version of my grandmother I never knew, the fighter. The iron will. The woman who refused to be erased. The last letter. A week ago, I found a letter tucked into the back of the journal Grandma had been keeping during the trial. It was addressed to me. Rachel. What you did for me saved more than my house. You saved my name. You reminded me that no matter how much people take, they can't rewrite truth if someone's willing to speak it. I hope I die with dirt on my hands and no unfinished words in my mouth. You gave me that chance. Asterisk, never let them shame you for fighting. Ever. Asterisk, I cried. Of course I did. But they were the good kind. For anyone still reading. If you take anything from this story, let it be this. Elder abuse doesn't always look like bruises. Sometimes it wears suits. Sometimes it smiles at dinner. Sometimes it calls itself family. Guard your people. Guard their names. And if someone tries to silence them, raise hell. We did. And we're still here.